You're listening to the Road to Wisdom podcast, weaving stories told by wonderful minds about all things motherhood, health, intimacy, politics, nature, and everything in between.
Join us on an adventure discovering unique experiences that we can learn from to enhance the ways in which we live.
We are your hosts, Chloe
and Kashia. Welcome everyone to the Road to Wisdom podcast. Today we have Elle and Amanda in the studio from Born at Home. Let me think about when this is going to be out, but I think you guys would have done the rounds tour-wise for the film, and
hopefully everyone will be able to watch it at home by then. Is that the plan?
We're going on tour, so we're heading off March 11th. March 11th on a New South Wales, Vic and South Australian tour.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, we still got some time.
Yeah.
And also once we leave, then we'll be open to community screenings locally. So we've got a Byron screening soon, another one, and then community can request a screening and then get all your friends along and watch it in the cinema. In 1 year, then we'll have it available online.
Amazing.
so amazing. Yeah, we just recently saw, well, not as recently,
Like a few weeks ago.
which in Babyland could be forever, really. But it had us in tears. It was such a beautiful film, and laughing as well. And I'm so glad that you left in the really funny parts of birth. I think that because so often, I mean, coming from having filmed a few births and photographed a few myself, and like you look at all of the birth films out there and they're all very serious, and there's this big crescendo as the baby comes out, and you're not getting a lot of noise around that. But
it's like a beautiful acoustic chill folk song, and you actually don't see any, you're not really there. You're just like, oh, it's so beautiful, our baby.
Yeah. And it's always like, the labouring woman, it comes to this part and then the baby's out and it's just like really calm after baby. And like in your film, you guys just had
roaring, primal women.
And then dad's like, oh my God, it's just here.
The
dads were the funniest, I think.
All the expressions.
And I think one of the birthing mums was like, oh my God, it's breathing and everything. Like,
So stressed. Oh my God, we're parents. Like, what?
And
that's just her personality.
And it's such a reality though as well. And birth can be ecstatic and fun like that. So I'm really glad that you guys left that in and didn't just make it this very serious, which it is. They're serious and beautiful, and
It's ordinary. It's just birth.
It is.
It's not. It's the most magical day of your life, but also the world keeps going, and it's so special, and it's not special at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of like life. You know, life is up and down and funny and crying and serious and intense, and then also lighthearted. So I feel like we got to touch on all of that throughout the film.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's big. But also, my partner's in the film industry. He's an actor, and I often think how hard it is for me to be in that world, just supporting him as a mother. But then I was thinking, you guys are mothers and you did that. You were him in my scenario. And I was like, how? How? Because often I'll look at all these people behind the scenes and like they're doing all this crazy stuff, and there's never like a schedule that runs on time. There's never anything that you just don't really feel like I'm constantly in awe how these people actually get stuff done, and they don't have kids there. And I do on the other side, but I'm like, wow, how did you guys do that? And also maybe we can just start with like how and why this film came to be.
Do you want to start with the why, and then I'll
I can do the why. Because we're crazy.
we're crazy.
Really the why comes down to wanting to share the beauty of birth with the world. And for me, I have a background in health, so I'm an acupuncturist, so trust birth, trust the body, just does the thing, stay away and let it do its magic. And the why came from learning a lot about the system in doing some advocacy stuff with Homebirth Queensland, and I learned a lot of stuff that was bad, all the stats around birth, and heard lots of really traumatic experiences from all different kinds of women, and I wanted to do something to help. And one-on-one level, it's just too small. I really value the people that do that work. But for me, I like to go big, and the idea of a film came about because I just wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to help women to make more informed choices about their care and what that care looks like, because it's not just a hospital birth at home. It's a totally different experience. It's a totally different rite of passage. And how do women learn that there are different options? And film is just such a great platform to share a message and share an alternative. So that's where the film came about. And really the other reason for me, it's like two things. The advocacy stuff, like how do we get the message out there? It's such a beautiful experience. I had 2 kids, both born at home. And the other side of it was just wanting to share that transformational moment of when your baby is born and then they're directly on your chest, uninterrupted, no one's touching them, no one's touching you, and you just have that sacred space to bond and connect and be transformed. That's what I wanted more women to feel. And in the film, we have so many moments like that captured. You know, the baby's coming up and then you see their eyes just open and they're just staring at their mother, and then the father, and then they just sit there in peace for however long that feels good. And that's what I want more women to feel like, to come out of their births just feeling amazing, transformed, confident, capable, and then they move into that next season of their life with those feelings embedded into them. That's what changes, and that's what the rite of passage should be. Not being traumatized and having fractured relationships and fractured bonding for the rest of their life.
Which is really where they quote like peace on earth begins with birth. That is what it is.
It does. 100%.
Cool. I hadn't heard that one before.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Peace on earth begins with birth.
I don't know who that belongs to, but
Someone wise.
yeah.
You claim it. But I think too with the production of this film, I mean recently or more recently, the science is coming out to back up that it is a safer option for low risk women to be at home, and not like it reduces basically every single statistic by just being at home. So yeah, I think it's sorely needed information, because this is not information that I had around when I was going into birth the first time. And I know so many of my friends that came from a similar background to me only think that hospital's the only option, and a home birth is just for like really weird hippie
Alternatives.
yeah, like you have to be super alternative
And
to have
it's
a home
not.
birth. No,
When you look at who access those services, these are very educated people.
Yeah.
They know the science, they know it's safer. And if you
they're
want
obstetricians themselves,
absolutely health professionals,
right, yeah.
And who doesn't want a physiological birth? Most people. And if you are planning to birth at home, you have more than 95% of a chance of having a normal birth. And I use those quotation marks because in the study it was like normal birth means, you know, no interventions, but it can mean like placenta being assisted, or, you know, there's a couple things that are excluded. But I mean, what 95% chance? Plan to birth at home. Worst case scenario, you transfer and you still have a chance of a vaginal birth is what I mean.
Yeah.
You still have a 95% of a vaginal birth.
Yeah, like Dr. Sarah Buckley, we got to interview her. She's absolutely amazing, but she's a GP, done obstetric study, and she had 4 babies born at home because she could see, both her and her husband are doctors, she knew what birth was like in the hospital, and she'd also said she witnessed a few home births from some of her friends. And so she understood it intellectually from a medical point of view, and then also from a woman-centered point of view. And she chose to birth all 4 of her kids at home. So that really got me interviewing her. I was just like, oh, you are really in the know.
But she's also a rare one.
She's special.
she's a powerhouse. That one.
Yeah.
We're trying to get her on, but she's doing a PhD at the moment. So
In oxytocin and childbirth. Yeah.
But something that I remember from the film is that one of the statistics was that like 3% or was it less of women actually birth at home, even though we can say that 95% of women will just have a beautiful physiological vaginal birth.
0.3%.
Or was it 0.3?
0.3%.
Really?
But that doesn't include free birth. This is
Just
planned.
what's on the record.
Yeah, born at home with a midwife.
Yeah.
And so there's a category called other,
Okay.
and that includes, I think, it does include free birth if you're recording that data, and born
BBAs.
before arrival. Yeah. So,
Yep.
side of the road situations.
Which
so,
is a free birth.
Yeah, it is a free birth.
Just not
It's not a planned free birth.
Yeah.
So, when you combine those two statistics, probably 1%. In other countries, it's higher. Other countries, it can be 3 to 4%. But it's still such a minority, and
That
we're
is
very
tiny.
low.
for something that has a 95% normal birth rate. And also, if you look at all the other stats, which I won't go into too much, I love stats, but trauma rates, 1 in 3 women are traumatized by their birth. That will not happen at home. That is not 100% success rate for breastfeeding or 99% success rate. Where else do you get those stats?
Yeah.
Nowhere.
Exactly.
Not in a hospital.
No.
No.
100%.
Well, I think it's great to have a hospital there for when you actually need it. And how great would that be if just 4% the role it was reversed and just
yeah.
like maybe 4% of us might need that. And I see that to be so transformative for women and the world, because if hospitals, midwives, OBs, whoever they are, only had to work with 4% of us,
Yes.
their entire, because I know most of them have good intentions, but they're so overworked. They have all these policies, procedures.
Stressed.
This is a shit show in there.
Yeah.
And they actually have no compassion anymore. They've got no empathy for this process, that they're desensitized, and none of them actually like probably being there as much as they would if they just got to spend 12 hours with one woman, or they would just, it would be so different
the
as a
time and the
whole.
resources, to actually be
Instead,
present.
95% of us are walking in there to give birth, and we don't probably need to be.
Absolutely.
So-
Well, 10 to 15% of women, that's the WHO's, guesstimate of women who actually need cesarean sections. And in Queensland, I think it's Australia, we're up to 38%. So in the 2 years that we interviewed Asia, it was 36% cesarean section, and now 38%. So the trend is significantly increasing. So that leaves, what is that? 15% of women that are having unnecessary cesareans. This is major surgery.
Yeah.
They don't need it.
And the outcome, and when you look at mortality rates between mothers and babies, the outcomes haven't changed for the last
no
10 years,
different.
I think. It's,
So I want to do an Instagram thing where it shows the infant and maternal mortality rates, so death rates, and then the increase in interventions. So we're over servicing women for no gain, zero gain. And also we're traumatizing them. So what are we doing?
Yeah.
Something needs to change.
Yeah, I love what when we had an interview with Dr. Rachel Reed. Love her. I think it was on her podcast.
We've pestered her multiple times.
She's so difficult.
Come on, just come on.
Yeah.
I think it was on her podcast, which is the Midwives Cauldron.
Yeah.
Great listen if anyone wants to check that out as well. But she was saying this is almost the perfect time to look at home birth as an option, because we have a great medical system. They've got it down pat. If you need an intervention, cesarean, that kind of thing,
they're well
they're
resourced for that.
they're well resourced and they're good at it.
Great,
right?
yeah.
And
because
that's
they get so much practice.
that's their forte. And so, she's like, if we've got that now. So, the risk of, mum, baby having severe complications is so much lower at home. And then if you need it, it's right there. If we can take advantage of that system that we've built up in the Western world, So, I really love that, how she put it. It's like the perfect time to look at home birth as an option, because we've got that
you're most
alternative
likely
there.
not going to have anything go wrong. And if
And
the
if you-
small chance that there is, you are going to be so well looked after.
looked
Absolutely.
after.
You just transfer in.
Yeah, transfer in.
It's seamless.
Just do it.
You will mostly labour at home anyway. You're just extending the
The whole,
I'm sure it's we've made it sound very easy.
It's laboursome. It's called labour for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't have to look like it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then were we going to talk about the how?
Yeah.
of the
Oh, yeah. There was numbers in there, Eleanor. I can't control myself.
I love stats. I love it. So I guess, any creative project, like you said, it's like it's chaos, like at the best of times. Plus, add in motherhood on top of that. We both got 2 young ones, and during the filming, I actually did get pregnant, gave birth, and had a young one. Like very little. So I almost thought we could have a podcast and call it utter chaos or almost all the time chaos or something like that, because that's what it was. It was very messy. It was very kind of, we had to be very flexible, very spontaneous. It was we basically had to create this film in the moments between the moments, because we've got family, we're mums, we've got small kids that really rely on us. We also own our own businesses as well, so we've got day jobs. And so it was, it was crazy. Like there was multiple times where I was like, what are we doing? Should we even continue this? I mean,
I feel like we feel this way so often. It's just like
I
utter
hate
chaos.
this podcast.
What are we doing?
It's worth it.
Yeah. But then exactly like birth, like it's so messy and it's crazy and it's intense. Like, what's happening internally inside you, you might not see it on the outside for some mums because they're really in their process. But on the inside it's just that creative energy is chaos. And then the beauty that comes out of it, like the final product of this film, like we just think it's so beautiful.
We had no idea.
But but you just like think of all the parts that had to go together to create this, and they were not beautiful. Or maybe they are because it is life. But
There's a beauty to it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't diminish the chaos and the hardships and all of that.
Yeah,
So.
but it is crazy. Like it was just the 2 of us making this. I have a videography background, but I'd only really just gone out on my own with my own business. So all my gear was, secondhand. It was, I'm in this, I don't have a big editing suite. I have this little table, which is also the baby's room. So, and I'm like, put headphones on, there's kids screaming, so it's, absolute chaos. And I just can't believe that we created this in amongst that. Yeah.
But it is your most creative time when you're in that season, as at the same time we've spoken about this before, like it's a pull and a push between like things come to you and you like feel so creative and you're birthing these ideas and like just have this fire, but you're also like, I'm hollow inside. Like how do you go through it? But you do.
I wish someone could just set me up with an intravenous of sleep. That's all the only thing I want.
That is a great business idea.
It's good.
I don't know how to do that.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's massive, and the film was all of that, and I love that we just spoke about the one of the most. I feel like you would have thought this too because we were just talking about the beautiful parts of it and the not so beautiful parts of it. There was a part of the film where the baby was being like pulled out. I think it was that
in hospital.
Yeah, and I just like my whole body just
contracted.
Yeah, I was not okay. I was like, I almost questioned like, should I be watching this being so pregnant? Like, am I going to be able to like dissociate from all of this that I'm watching and my own thing that I'm walking into?
I think in the cinema at that stage there was like a collective intake of breath. Yeah, because like when you see it, I mean, and how many people has that happened to? How many women has that happened to? And like so many people before they consider home birth have gone through something traumatic in a hospital. So the number of people who probably experienced that or saw it, if you're a birth worker, and at the time you don't get to really register what's happened. Like it's kind of shocking, but everything's happening so quickly and it must have needed to be done. But when you see it on film and you're not in that situation, it is
so
shocking how
it's visceral,
how
your body responds.
rough they are.
And then my thing was when they quickly put it down on mum's to say hi to mum and then whisked her away. And then I like seeing the mum's hand like go up like this, like my baby, but it's happened already. And then they jump on the table, rubbing her up, like all of that stuff just seems so, it's like, oh God, that is so rough.
Shocking. Yeah. I know.
It
And
seems inhumane.
And you see that in birth films as well, like people's birth films. And it's got the nice friendly music behind it. And it's like, oh, this is just what happens. But I don't know if you guys have seen this documentary. There was a 3-part series on Netflix ages ago that was focused on Brazil. And because their cesarean rates, I think, are beyond 50%. Like
60 or something.
Yeah. And they followed like the footage they got from inside hospitals and what happens. Have you seen it?
I didn't. I don't think I saw it, but I know a little bit. Like
I was talking to Chloe about it on the way home from seeing your film because I'm like, that was so insanely shocking to me. And I watched it when I was postpartum with my third. Terrible time.
Bawling, emotional, hormonal.
But like the cesarean sections, like you're seeing literal crowbars in there. There are like birth assistants that look like security guards pumping on women's stomachs as they're pulling babies out. And it's just, like some really horrendous stuff. And that's not probably what you see in Australia.
Hey.
You've seen some things. Amanda's seen some things.
I have friends, in the maternity world, and the stuff happens here.
Yeah.
We're not excluded from it all. Look at the trauma rates and the PTSD rates, and like some disgusting things are happening to women in Australia.
And they try and normalize it. Like, this is necessary. This is necessary for your baby to survive and for you to survive. And it's
survive is a good word. They never talk about thriving.
No.
Yeah, it's surviving the system.
I think my point of bringing that up was that we had a friend actually who said it's like something so truthful the other day, was like she free birthed her first baby because she had been around women who have walked the path before her and birthed, and kind of just said to her one day, why not just birth at home, because most people end up birthing at home to avoid the trauma that they experienced the first time. So like, why bother putting yourself in a position where you're going to? But I guess a lot of women they walk that path, and I mean path of the hospital system and obstetric care or whatever, because it's like the gold standard. They're not actually aware of the options, or they feel like it's not safe, or it's kind of just like,
it gets poo-pooed a lot. It
does, yeah.
In like your more like modern day culture.
Yeah.
A home birth is so messy.
Yeah, a lot of the women that you did interview on the documentary were those women. They were women who had been really traumatized in their births and then found themselves in a position where they just didn't want to do that anymore. So they've gone through that and they obviously don't want to do that again. And in your research phase of this film and your experience, how do you feel like women get to the place where, or the realization, or even just the understanding that there is something else, like you can do something else, and then they find themselves home birthing and having this, incredibly beautiful experience?
Luck in some ways. There's not enough resources. I find talking to women, what do? They get a test and then they usually go to their GP, and then the GP says private or public, and they don't tell you that home birth is an option. And so that was one of the drivers about why we created this film. It's because there's not enough opportunity to learn and be inspired by an alternative. So it's lucky if you have people in your community that offer an alternative, or you become so traumatized that you research an alternative. In Queensland, we've got Home Birth Queensland, and New South Wales, Home Birth New South Wales, and Home Birth Australia. They're really good orgs, non-for-profit organisations, completely run by volunteers, and they work so hard and they do a lot of advocacy, and they run really good community groups and have great information and research on their website. So if somehow someone stumbles onto those resources, then that's a good way to set them on their journey. But usually people find out about home birth through community. So someone else, a friend of a friend, has said something and they've remembered it.
Yeah.
And then they start.
I think that's why this documentary is so great, because it's really just taking it's the opportunity to just show something, show women that there is this, and it actually is more or less, it can be, if that's what you want, an extension of a hospital, but you've got a way better chance of having a peaceful, non-traumatic birth at home, even though you have if you think it's safe, the safety of a medical professional being there, supporting you, and, you know, watching you and making sure that you're all good. And I just don't think people think that about home birth. They think like you're flying solo, it's like riddled with dangers. If something happens, you're screwed, you're on your own. It's like something bad's going to happen.
But I think the messaging around birth probably from a social standpoint needs to change quite a bit too, because how often do you hear that, oh, birth is like, and I mean, in the scheme of things, it is such a small event of you becoming a parent. That's such a small event. So really, so long as there's an alive baby and an alive mum, what else matters? And so we're not given this pre-thought as like children, really. Like back in the day, you would have been exposed to people birthing in some way, shape or form. The stories would have been shared, and that doesn't, it's all very like much kept away from children, from society. I feel like a child is now a child till they're like 35. And like you don't ever think about this stuff until you're like, oh, time's ticking, I'm in a relationship, I'm going to get knocked up, and now I need to do all my birth research before this baby comes. But people don't even think that. It's like, because there's no cultural messaging about how, like, the importance of birth. It's more, and I've heard like obstetricians say this, obviously not the ones that we like, that birth is just such a insignificant moment in time that, like, in the scheme of your life, I mean, you've got a whole lifetime of parenting to do after that. Like, you focus on that.
It's the foundation of parenting.
It's the foundation of everything. Like, all of your instincts and intuitions and pregnancy. I mean, we've just spoken about how potent pregnancy is as a creative force, and when we all end up doing all this crazy shit because we're getting creative and all of that hormone. And I love Mary Harrington for multiple reasons, but she's always like pregnancy doesn't just create a baby, it creates a mother. So like honoring that experience as well. It's just
it's so important.
It's so important. And like bringing the focus back to this is actually really important. And yeah, your parenting journey is going to be really important too, but this is going to set you up for that.
Yeah, birth and actually the outcome of it is really important. And often women who have been traumatized think that they're lucky because they were saved. But often we miss the fact that entering the system or entering the hospital and entering that environment is actually what you needed saving from. And so, yeah, I think it's a really beautiful thing that was highlighted in the film.
Yeah. And firsthand, I absolutely understand the difference between going into motherhood exhausted, in pain, recovering yourself, or having a great birth, walking it off, and, you know, off you go, and you've got all this amazing energy. You've done the thing, so you've been empowered by it, and now you can do anything. You know, you've got the bonding is uninterrupted. Breastfeeding journey begins really well compared to, you know, in my case, I had a cesarean for my first. That was unwanted. It was a 40-hour labour. I was utterly exhausted. It was not an emergency. It was unnecessary how it happened. And so I stepped into motherhood. I didn't see my baby for like the first 3 days, didn't hold him, breastfeed him, anything like that. So I stepped into motherhood in pain, recovering myself, not even able to stand up or, you know, rock my baby or wear my baby. I had to like put him down all the time, and like breastfeeding was just so difficult because we'd had that interruption. We hadn't been able to get going straight away. Like, imagine that, plus all the sleep deprivation, plus, you know, all the like, I was taking pain medications that was probably going to my body, into my breast milk, like to try and get through the first couple of weeks. Yeah, couldn't drive for 6 weeks. It was just like all of these unnecessary things that I had to go through on top of learning how to be a mum and really trying to get back that bonding and get the breastfeeding going, as opposed to having my daughter at home, and like, yeah, it just everything was just so easy. Yeah, it's just so easy. And then coming forth with all this oxytocin and all this empowered feelings, and like, yes, my body does work. I knew it.
Yeah, and
I knew I could do that. My hips aren't, the babies aren't too big to come out of it. Like all that stuff that they tell you.
That's something that I don't think gets given enough of importance as well. That it's not just the physical. Like, yes, the hormones are disrupted. Yes, your bonding's disrupted. Yes, like there is a disconnect, but the emotional, like, why do we want women coming into their mothering journey feeling like their body failed them, feeling like something was innately wrong with them, that they couldn't do this? And I mean, we were just talking about before we started recording now how, like, if you have a child in NICU or something like that, like nurses and doctors will come in and do all the nappy changes and like clothing changes, and it's just like this messaging of you can't do it, you can't do it, you don't know what you're doing, you can't do it. And
also the baby, all these strangers touching you, it's just like,
don't get
my mum. Like,
and it's like, like, why wouldn't we do our best to avoid that situation? But no, I think the more birthing at home videos we can get out there.
Yeah. I would like to talk about, like, because it's your favorite thing, stats and all. Like, how safe did you always know that it was this safe? Or like when you were uncovering all this research for the film, were you like, wow, I actually can't believe how safe it is to just birth at home?
I knew it was safe.
There?
Yeah, because the first thing was the research that I did. When you read the research, it's safer. It's all around low risk women, and that's a whole nother thing. I'd love to see more high risk women, high BMI. It's ridiculous. It'd be accessible for them too, because it can absolutely be safer for them as well. But there's so much research around the safety of home birth for mums and babies. And yeah, so it's there. And for me, I had that lived experience of it being safer, because my dude was born at home. My first guy, he required resuscitation and transfer to the hospital. So I experienced safety in that aspect as well, because he received what he needed to, and then not traumatized by that experience. So, I saw firsthand the midwife doing exactly what they would have done in a birth suite in a more respectful way. We were involved in the resuscitation. So we were doing breaths, we were clearing airways. My friend who was there got a chopping board from the kitchen, and that's his chopping board. He was resuscitated on the bed. So, that is safety to me as well, because that's emotional safety, as well as like very clear physical safety. And then when the ambulance arrived, they were so happy with what they achieved, and he's great. So, there's so much research out there. If you're interested, I'll be having on our website a whole page of resources. So if people are science heads and love to read things like that in their spare time, they can go onto our website and have a whole bunch of really great articles there.
Nerd out on it.
Yeah. And also the film's good for that too. We talk a lot about science.
There's heaps of stuff.
It's not alternative.
No. It's really not.
It's biology, physiology.
There's no dreaded hippies up in that birth film.
Totally. And also,
it is all just like very normal like people that you wouldn't like think. You wouldn't walk down the street and be like, I bet that person home birthed. Like it's very mixed bag.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, I wanted to do that. I wanted it to be relatable, so but also reflective of different people in the community. So we have people with a variety of birth experiences. So we have a first-time mum who has gone in, first baby, and that's the birth. We've got footage of that birth on there. We interviewed them before and after, and their birth, Jess and Bob in the middle with the little dash hound.
Oh, yes. They were hilarious.
They're so cute.
Oh, my gosh.
She just melted me so much.
And
I'm like, can I be friends with her?
She's so sweet.
She's so sweet.
Oh, my gosh. I love. That's one of my favourite segments in the film.
Yeah.
It's just such a beautiful story in itself. It's like a 5-minute segment. And so Jess and Bob, they're first-time mums. and we have
Mum and dad.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the dog, but I'm like, the dog's a boy too. So we've got some women who have had 2 cesareans and have gone on to home birthed, and they talk about their experience. So we have some women who have had instrumental deliveries. One was the hospital footage that we saw in that section. So I wanted to really get a good spectrum so women can watch it and go, okay, I'm a first time mum. She did that, so I can do it. She's had 2 cesareans. You know,
that's a
her
big
body's
one.
not broken.
That's a big one.
It works. It just needed environmental change and the people that were there to be supportive.
Yep.
So, you know, you can do that. I've had a hospital birth with an instrument, you know, or epidural. I can do it too. So, and then we have the free birth women too. So I wanted to really provide a very good spectrum of, so everyone can relate and really feel like they can do it too.
Yeah, I think that's something that we found quite impressive too, that you did mention free birth. Obviously something that we platform here quite a bit. I think mainly from the point of women's bodies aren't broken, and the free birthing world does prove that. And regardless of what you choose to do for your birth, I think it's really beautiful knowing all these stories from women who have done it off their own backs and the babies come out.
Yeah.
Nothing needed to happen except for they were just there. The mum was there, the baby was there, baby comes out. So I think they're empowering stories, but I'd love to talk to you guys about free birth because it is such a contentious topic. Yeah, how did you feel, you know, putting that in the film, and would you, we talked earlier that you probably could have done a whole film on free birth itself, but yeah, how is that going about that?
Well, it needs to be talked about. I think we have one of the highest free birth rates in Queensland, and you know, it's very, happens all the time. Babies come out and no one needs to attend. So for us, it's about informed decision making, and that means that birth is a spectrum. So you've got women who are planning to have an elective cesarean and they own that choice and they're super, super happy and not traumatized by that. And then at the other end, you've got free birth with no one, or free birth with a doula, a birth keeper. And it's about providing that information for someone to make a true informed decision about their care. I don't care what they do. We don't care. We just want women to be happy and leave their birth experience feeling good. So we wanted to present it because it happens, and you know, we don't care what anyone does. We have no feelings
and
about.
also maybe just to distinguish, because like you said, there is this kind of stigma where I feel like it all gets lumped together. It's like home birth is just, you're just doing it by yourself, mate, you know, with absolutely nobody there. But it can look at a variety of ways to birth at home. It can be a home birth where you have organised to have, you know, private midwives, and usually you have 2 in attendance, and then you also might have a doula, partner, mums, you know, so you can have a whole big birth team there. You could also just have free birth, and you could, you know, just do it with a doula, or you could do it completely by yourself. So, you know, it's not just, everyone at home is just doing it by themselves and it's so unsafe. And, you know, it's actually well thought out. So people that generally free birth, they've decided that that's what they want to do unless it's unexpected.
Yeah.
You know, but we didn't want people to feel like it was an either or. So like, you know, you can't feel like you want assistance if you need it, like a medical team, you know, because midwives are, they're amazing. They're trained in all sorts of situations, like you see in the film, and they have all sorts of equipment that they bring in with them. So you can feel if that's something that's comforting to you and you feel safer with that around, like, you know, home birth is such a great option then, because they do bring it all. Like in the film, I think it's Anne Moore. She's a midwife, and she says, like, we have everything on hand to stabilise a woman exactly as we would have in a birthing suite. And then if we need to, you know, call an ambulance and do a transfer, we will. But, you know, most of the time they don't need it, and most of the time the equipment expires because they've never used it, but it's there, you know, and they are trained and they keep up to date with their training.
There's a lot. I remember one of my old midwives just bringing over like these huge, massive tubs of stuff, and she's like, don't look, I'm just going to put this somewhere where you can't see it and you're not going to think about it, and it's just going to be here. And yeah, it's like full of just like
oxygen,
everything
yeah.
you need if anything goes wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually not unsafe at all.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, it's
So we
amazing.
wanted to distinguish that as well in the film, so people understood like there's a variety of choices, and it doesn't all just look like that. But so
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that not all midwives and birth keepers are created equally. So if you are engaging in this space, free birth, home birth with midwives, or no one, it's really important to have very clear conversations and very open, very direct conversations with, if you're engaging a birth keeper or a midwife. What do you do? What is your expectation of me? What is my expectation of you? And have very clear conversations about that, because I think that sometimes home birth isn't without trauma. You know, it can happen, trauma can happen in any space. And so I think one of the reasons why it can happen at home is because those conversations aren't being said, like they aren't occurring early enough. And so there can be a breakdown in the relationships later on, which can be traumatic if someone, you know, starts to decline care for whatever reason, or, you know, you've gone to 42 and apparently your midwife won't support you if you're over 42 weeks. So it's really important. And same as your birth keeper, you know, they're not there to do resuscitation.
Yeah.
So if you're free birthing, that's on you, you know, and it's taking radical responsibility for your choices, you know, whatever that looks like. If it's at home, if it's free birth, then, you know, it's about really feeling into yourself, not society, not what's cool, not what's on trend. Does that feel truly good for me? I'm in tune with my baby and my body, and then I'm making those decisions. And then that's safe. That is safety for you. It's not safety for you if you don't have that connection and you're making those choices based on what's cool, external factors. So it's really important to sit with that and really truly feel what is the best for you and your baby.
Yeah. And how cool was that the breech section in the film?
Oh my
you know,
gosh,
midwives are trained in different things, you know. So that's a good question to ask. You know, you're trained in breech birth because there can be a surprise breech at home, you know. And so that was amazing to capture in the film where we had that was a surprise
That killed
breech.
me. I was like, it was just so like
The head.
yeah, it was quite shocking
It's
to
shocking.
see.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Dude,
wow.
I went on
It's
like
not on my radar.
I went on a breech birth binge. For some reason my algorithm just like fed me all breech home births and free births, and like I was like, so seeing that I was kind of like, yeah.
I
But,
just
like-
had never seen it before, nor did I go looking for it, and I was shocked. I was like, that looked so intense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
but how
really
normal was
intense
it?
getting it.
Yeah. Like
but
the
it was
woman-
fuss free.
Fuss
It was
free.
like she wasn't like cut open or
No.
like a episiotomy or like there was none of that. It was just like
How cool was that shoulder press?
just like
She just pushed on the baby shot because the head wasn't flexed.
Yeah.
So she would look, and if you look, I've watched it a lot of times, and I'm like, she's really like
quite
forcing
pushing.
that baby.
Yeah.
Like, so she's, and then the head just,
Which that is actually interesting too, because I've always heard with a breech birth you don't touch.
normally.
So it's always hands off.
Depends,
So because I mean I've never experienced a breech baby before, but I've always like heard if you're at a breech birth, you know, you need to get a sling or something under the baby because you don't want to pull or anything like that. So I guess seeing that there is a maneuver
There's
to
a
help
maneuver,
to
and that
assist.
comes, like Sasha describes it really well. I don't know the physiology behind it, but it's the stages. So if the baby hasn't come out by then, you know, and so she's watching. Okay, cool, and then that's okay. If needed assistance, that's the move you do.
And this is traditional midwifery.
Yeah.
You know, women have not always birthed without assistance.
yeah.
You know, they're traditionally women have birthed in a group.
Yeah.
And there are women
the
that have
older-
that experience. And,
older women.
you know, sometimes we do need help. And that can look in all different ways. It could be a touch. It could be a word. It could be physical assistance in terms of like shoulder dystocia does happen. It's normal. You know, sometimes you do need someone there that has those skills to do the thing. And in that case, Sasha waited a period of time and then they, you know, needed to move out and they did all the things. And it was like, okay, well, the last thing is the hands-on maneuver, which is a shoulder press. And that's
Yep.
when she did what she did. So there was like a whole period of time in that
Before
whole
that,
sequence
where-
of events where they did a lot of things, and it was just the flexion of the head.
Yeah.
And then as
That
soon
was
as
the
that
last thing needed.
occurred,
Yeah.
then
And
slipped
then,
on
but
out.
then my favorite was the way that the mum talked about it afterwards. She was just like, for her, it was just normal. Like it didn't feel abnormal. There was no fear that came in.
Yeah.
You know, Sasha just, that gentle hand on the back, just letting her know, hey, bum's coming out first. So remember, we're just going to do this. We're still going to let it descend. And then just the gradual, okay, let's get out of the pool. And she said it just felt normal, just birth, you know, for her. There was no, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. You've held the space well as the midwife. If the woman comes out of a less usual situation, shall we say,
Yeah.
feeling like it was just normal.
Yeah.
So,
She was so empowered
That was
after
great,
that birth.
wasn't it? Yeah.
There's nothing crazier than seeing a baby hang out with its entire body and
Yeah.
its head
Head
is
is
still
the
in
only-
there.
The head is the buns.
oh my God, have you? There was
It's
a
just
meme.
like, it just doesn't look.
There was a meme that I shared on my Instagram a little while ago, and it was has anyone thought about breech babies for a short time wear their mums as hats?
Yeah.
Have you seen
I've seen that. Yeah.
So funny.
That's what it looks like.
I had a friend message me after I shared that, and she's like, person, nice hat. Me, yeah, it's just my mom. Like, it's so many good conversations came from that.
But before we start making meme jokes, I do want to highlight that really important thing that you just said before, the breech birth, with the women taking like charge and reclaiming where they're at and what they're about to do, because it's something that we always talk about is like, it is our responsibility. Like if we can get into that place of being like, well, I'm about to have a baby, what do I really want and who's going to be that person or what does it look like, is just so important. And it can look like so many different things. It can look like hiring a midwife and not having any antenatal care. It can look like hiring an unregistered midwife. It can look like so many different options. And yeah, I think you really nailed it when you said that it's really important to get clear with that and then have the conversations and be really transparent with expectations and like getting to know what they're going to do in the moment. And yeah, I think that's really
I think and be
big and important.
careful, being careful of how much you're letting those around you influence your decisions. So I think, yeah, that's something that I think like I like to touch on because I'm like to not have hi bird. To trust my own intuition and to hear my own voice, I really have to have everyone else out of my space. So, and then I feel like I'm hyper vigilant when I go into that birthing space. I know exactly what to do, when to do it. And if I'm feeling anything that's wrong, I'll do something about it rather than asking someone else, you know, and relying on someone else's word to give me that reassurance. And I know that there's also power in having someone there to support you, especially, I guess, what Rhea calls the crisis of confidence. But I think, yeah, you have to be like really discerning of what feels like this doesn't feel right. I need to, we've got to intervene now versus just that I can't do this,
Yeah.
which is what I guess most of us go through.
Every single one of us says that during birth.
First time, second time, third time, fourth.
I don't think I
can't do this.
Out comes baby.
So, yeah, and I think it's really important that the people you're surrounding yourself with in that moment are not giving you or telling you how you feel, telling you what you're going to feel or,
what's happening for you.
influencing your own intuition and what you know in your body. And I think that's also something that we spoke about in our Q&A, which is where we're all kind of coming out of fairly traumatic births from ancestors, etc. The last few years in the birth space hasn't been brilliant for probably most of our own births. So we're trying to reclaim that intuition as well. And knowing that, well, my intuition probably isn't all 100% there if I haven't been listening to what my body needs food-wise or light-wise or whatever. And then you're going to come into pregnancy and just be like, I'm an intuitive beast. Like there's, having that conversation too and being really clear on where you're at and then what support you need. I think it's always a good...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important to not be too purist with it all, because sometimes you have this idea of like this beautiful, situation, and birth is hard, and well, it can be. It's laboursome, and it's not always about obviously there's an ideal case scenario, but it doesn't have to be the purist as in like alone in a stream by yourself, unless that truly feels good for you.
It does sound
but
pretty
it's
good.
okay.
Yeah.
It's
If you don't
okay
wanna
if
do
that
that.
doesn't actually feel good for you. Like for me, I had my 2 midwives who I loved and my 2 really close friends, and I loved that it was a party.
Yeah.
We celebrated together and like I shared those moments with them, and that imprinted on them as well. And so it's okay to do whatever you want to do,
Exactly.
and if actually that feels like that looks like a hospital, then that also
Yeah,
is
we have
okay.
so many friends who are like, I actually just don't care. I'm going to have a great experience in the hospital and I'm not giving it any thought. I'm like, that's amazing.
And it
I've
is
got a friend who's like,
possible.
I'm having a C-section because my first natural birth was traumatic. I'm like, that's great.
You could
Good
go.
for you.
It's about being informed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then whatever that looks like, that's okay.
If it's true,
It's okay.
informed consent and you're aware of what's,
And what it means as well.
What it means.
During, after.
yeah.
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 Because then you can prepare for it. There's one thing for having an unexpected cesarean and then a planned one. So you know that you're going to be immobile, you're going to need some extra hands, you're going to have some more things in the freezer because it's standing up and cooking is not going to be an option for you. So there's that as well. There's no, after trauma of like, I didn't expect this and like, how do I do this? You actually know what you're in for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I guess too, that's like an expected free birth versus unexpected free birth. Because you hear about a lot of women who go through unexpected free births that very much intended to go to a hospital and ended up having their babies on the side of the road or whatever. I mean, you see, I don't know if
That
you've
was
seen the
almost
footage
me.
of like, dads driving the car, filming the baby coming out while they're driving on like... You haven't seen this?
No.
Oh my gosh. I remember seeing a woman just pull her baby out of her underwear in the front seat of the car and the dad's filming this whole time. I'm like, what do you do? Pull over.
Yeah.
That is something though that also stuck with me. Sarah Buckley said, because what happens early on in labour is if there's stress, something unexpected, the labour will stall, and that's a natural reflex so that you as a mammal can get to a safer place.
Yeah.
Whereas towards the end of labour, like after it's already kind of like well on its way, if you then try to transfer or there's stress happening, the baby will come out quicker
Really?
because that's
Safety.
the better option for the body,
Yeah.
get the baby out, then I can run because I'm too far gone now.
Yeah.
So that whole your mum used to say, oh, stay at home as long as possible. That is so true.
Yeah.
Like stay at home as long as you possibly can until that oxytocin snowball is so big that no matter what happens when you get to the hospital,
Yes,
baby's going to come out.
Yeah.
Flying
Yeah,
out.
don't go early.
Yeah.
Speaking of dads,
Yeah.
the dad who has a beer during labour,
Oh, mate, that's great.
love them.
Yeah,
they were
they're
such a
so
fun couple.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they had such quick labours that was one of the reasons why they chose to home birth for their second baby.
That's right.
It's just there's so many different reasons
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
families choose to birth at home.
Yeah.
And the beer is a great thing.
I've actually heard of a woman who had really quick labours and towards the end of her pregnancy was labelled high risk. I won't go into details, but it wasn't, it felt like an iffy high risk, but she's like, I have such quick labours that I'm not going to get to a hospital. Like, I don't know if I'll get to a hospital.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Like, so she, she couldn't be supported at home and ended up having an accidental free birth because labour comes on, baby shoots out. Like, it was just like that. And I mean, she was very grateful for that experience because then she could stay home. It was the only danger was in the birth, and that went down quite flawlessly. So, it's interesting to think about.
What do you so this is all out now, and I know you guys are going to be promoting it for like the next year, or I think year. But have you guys uncovered anything or learned anything during the process of making this film, and inspired to make another one?
Yes. How much can we say?
Minimal.
Yeah. Well, yes, definitely there will be more. The next one will definitely be almost like a follow-up kind of, I guess I can say it like that. Not so much focused on birth, but something in that realm that I think women are just going to absolutely love as well. And I think it's going to be a similar audience that will really appreciate this next one as well. But again, that will be making time for that. On top
We
of
have
promoting
so
this
much
one.
free time.
Oh, so much free time.
A lot
to
of
do all
time
this.
to do it.
Yeah.
But we are doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're touring, and we'll be sitting down and nutting out some loose plans.
I could think of so many amazing topics to make films on about birth and the whole thing. There's just so much to talk about, and so much to relearn or reprogram or just change and have that ripple out effect to so many women.
And just as well, because, like you were talking about, you don't know until you get pregnant almost nowadays about birth and about what you should be prepared for, what you should be thinking about. And so we really wanted to normalise it. Well, from the get-go, it'd be great if siblings were at births to start with, to go like, oh, yeah, that's what birth is and that's what I want. But also, maybe women that, either don't have a great connection with mum, or mum's not quite, free with that information about, women-centered things like birth, menstruation, things like that, and to have resources where you can go and watch it and get a really good grasp on it, and then go on to do your more research and talk to some more people. But we really wanted this film to be almost like an instigation and activation for women, that it would call to those people that it was right for. And even if you've already had babies, for your friends and family and sisters and your daughters and all that kind of stuff, to have this kind of resource that you can be so fully immersed to see what birth actually looks like and sounds like. It's just, I would have loved that pre-kids, absolutely. So,
yes, agreed.
that's our gift, our gift to the women. Yeah.
Well, it's an amazing documentary, and I didn't think that it was touring. I don't know why I thought it must be coming to a close end, and I thought you did too. But we've just learnt that you're going south. It's going to be New South Wales, Victoria, and so on for another year. So by the time
globally.
And global. Oh.
So we are officially in the UK. We have 55 screenings in the UK from March, April. And then
You guys are
You won't
obviously-
be there for those?
no families.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Those
And we'll
ball
also
and
be
chains.
touring Australia at that time.
Yes, so we're
Yeah.
touring Australia with us. We're doing Q&A tours like what we did on the Gold Coast in Byron. That's so much fun and so engaging.
Yeah.
And then so the community screenings through demand, they're worldwide at the moment. We've got UK, a bunch. New Zealand will be May for the International Day of the Midwife. And we've also got Canada in March. They're going live all on the same day, 25th. There's a bunch over there. And Ireland's part of the UK. And we're looking at Scandinavia at the moment. I forgot to tell you that. That's happening. Yeah. And also US. We're working on the US, but that's looking very promising. So
Good. They
hopefully,
need it.
I've said we just need like a bit of a delay, because it is us two.
Yeah.
We are
it's a lot of
doing
work.
all of it. When you create a film, when you look at the credit list, it's literally production
hundreds of people.
companies. Yeah. So we're doing all the things. So we I think we'll pace out the US a little bit just to make it easier.
And in regards to Australia as well, it's, definitely go on the website and have a look, because there's heaps of showings coming up in New South Wales, and then it's Victoria. There's also Tasmania, ACT,
Western
South
Australia,
some in Adelaide,
North-
Western Australia.
Okay, you're doing
Northern
a full
Territory.
circle.
Yeah, we'll
Yes.
just go down the East Coast and maybe hop on a plane and do a couple of the major cities, but probably won't get over to WA, because that is going so well.
They've sold out 3 screenings.
3 screens already sold out, and had to put on a couple more. So, yeah, definitely jump on and get your tickets if you haven't already. Because, we were surprised they kept selling out quite quickly.
Yeah, it's incredible. So
Yeah.
receptive.
Yeah.
It's perfect timing. I think there's a lot going on politically overseas as well. So they're kind of using the film as a showcase of what they're banging on about, basically.
And Amanda's really good at social. So the Instagram handle is Born at Home Film. So even if you just go on there and follow that, you keep posting all about the screenings and everything. So all the info will be on there too.
And if people wanted to find you guys, that's probably the best place to go.
Yeah, Instagram, we're very active. Email if you're, have a serious request. But
Emails on the website.
Emails on the website.
That's our
Yeah,
website,
but Instagram
bornathomefilm.
is good. bornathomefilm.com.au.
.au.
We need to take away the AU.
Yeah.
Just .com.
You guys have gotten so big. You're talking about that.
Oh, so big.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming in and sharing and creating, because I know it's not an easy thing to create a film, and I actually still can't believe that you've managed to do it. It's such valuable, wholesome, beautiful documentary. Such important work. So
Thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having
Thanks
us.
for all you
for
do as
coming
well,
in.
both of you. It's amazing. Love the
Beautiful
podcast.
women.
thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.